Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. Fresh news, smart talk, all day.
The views and opinions of the hosts and guests are their own and do not necessarily reflect the position of the management and staff of Guardian Network.
Good yawning this morning, and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, your station for fresh news, smart talk all day. It is Thursday, the 1st of August, 2024. If you are a hip-hop fan, that means it's the 1st of the month. Wake up, wake up, wake up, wake up. But if you've been living in the Bahamas your whole life, or part of your life, you know that today, Emancipation Day. In the Bahamas, we celebrate Emancipation Day on the public holiday, the first Monday of August. So the public holiday will be Monday, August the 5th this year. But today is Emancipation Day. We've got lots to talk about. Producer, you got that live read sheet in there, former? Y'all give me a second. University of the Bahamas has an important message for you. I got it. I have a copy. Here we go. Attention all fall 2024 applicants to the University of the Bahamas. The new academic year is fast approaching, and UB is thrilled to welcome you for fall 2024. If you started your online application, now is the time to submit all outstanding supporting documents. Make sure to send in your transcripts and copies of relevant passport pages urgently. To secure your acceptance to UB, your application must be fully processed. Remember to keep checking your email for important updates and reminders. Orientation and advisement for new students kicks off on Wednesday, August 7th, and classes begin Monday, August 19th. This message is brought to you by the University of the Bahamas Office of Recruitment and Admissions. I've got guests joining me in studio today, representatives from the Organization for Responsible Government, and a conversation in honor of Emancipation Day. I want to throw out all kinds of questions. Can you earn your freedom? Must you make your freedom? Can somebody give you your freedom? How do you keep your freedom, right? Is it like a beach body? You may have been born with it. And so our conversation with Organization for Responsible Governance today will be about identifying tools in the journey to freedom at a governmental level, at a community level. I got a couple more housekeeping notes, but I wanted to frame this out before I got into the housekeeping notes. There is a quote from Sir Lyndon Pindling. I know I am paraphrasing it, but the question, the thing he said was, are you willing to fight for your country? You will have to fight for your country. And I say to people, what if when he said you have to fight for your country, he meant you're going to need to have 2 or 3 or 7 jobs? What if the fight for your country, the work for your freedom, or the cost of your freedom is doing the work yourself? It is done the way that we want it to be done. And so we're going to get into that conversation with Org in a moment. In this moment, I have to remind you that the World Breastfeeding Week 2024 starts today. World Breastfeeding Week 2024 starts today. The Bahamas National Breastfeeding Association and the Ministry of Health and Wellness presents World Breastfeeding Week 2024 under the theme, Closing the Gap, Breastfeeding Support for All. This today, Thursday, the 1st through August the 7th, 2024. For more information to register for events, you can contact Trinika McCarty, that's the president of the National Breastfeeding Association, at 1-242-806-8314. That's 806-8314. Or Ampusam Simonet, vice president of the association, 421-4173. That's 1-242-421-4173. They're going to be on radios across the island all day today. They were on Morning Blend this morning. And then tomorrow, the big latch on at Ministry of Health and Wellness. Saturday, a church service at the Centerville Seventh-day Adventist Church. Sunday, they'll be at St. Agnes Anglican Church. Monday, the Emancipation Day holiday, is Umbrella-thon at the mall at Marathon. And what an apropos event, because we are expecting a little weather this weekend. Tuesday is the annual breastfeeding workshop and seminar, Zoom only, and Wednesday, the seminar continues. Again, you can go online and find the Bahamas National Breastfeeding Association and reach out to the president, Trinika McCarty, or vice president, Ampusam Simonet. Also, it's Thursday the 1st. That means the Hannah Hasty Tynes family reunion is about to launch. We have registration at the Marriott Hotel on Nassau Street, I think 11 to 4. And then at 6 p.m., our meet and greet. Tomorrow, breakfast meeting. In the morning, soiree and family affair. In the evening at Sapodilla. And then the beach picnic on Saturday, where we're going to have the first annual or biannual, every 2 years, once you have a supply of Tiger Balm, HHT Games, where Hannah Hasties and Tynes will duel it out in games like the egg and spoon race, the pop the balloon race. It's going to be a good time, everybody. I say I got to caller, why you hang up? I was just coming to you. I'm so sorry, caller. I am so sorry. Now, just give me a second. Today was supposed to be Road Traffic Thursday, but I couldn't miss out on an opportunity to talk with Org. I want to... Producer, let's go to that call. Maybe I'll call him back. Good morning, caller.
Hey, great show, you, Ms. Greene. How you doing?
Thank you. I'm good, thank you.
Hey, Rita, just a quick question, right?
Yes.
Which, in your opinion, is the most important of Bahamian? Independence Day or Emancipation Day? And second thing, which day is the best beach day? Independence Day or Emancipation Day?
Okay, Emancipation Day is the best beach day, hands down, without a doubt. Emancipation Day. Independence Day, you got too much fancy thing to go to. You can't mess up your hair. That means you can't bubble in the water properly. You can't do the mermaid. You can't do the barracuda. Right? I think Emancipation Day is the best beach day, but I think Emancipation Day is the more important of the two events. I think Emancipation Day has a greater impact on the collection, the groupings of us Africans in the diaspora. And even if somebody is predominantly of European descent, that doesn't negate African descent that may also be within them, right? And so, not just that, this act of emancipation frees both the enslaved and the slaver if the slaver submits to the process, right? So I definitely think it is Emancipation Day. Now, I think we need to thoroughly investigate or interrogate independence and what it means, and whether we have taken that challenge seriously. And here's the question, whether we said, so watch this. The Independence Day conversation now is equally important because of our proximity to the U.S. The geopolitics, right? The geopolitical space, our proximity to the U.S., the geography itself negates some of the elements of sovereignty that other countries may enjoy. And we, as citizens on the other side, have not built up our country sufficiently. Big brother to the north, hey, we really appreciate you. We are cousins, but you're encroaching a little bit, right? And we need to establish some boundaries here.
So you're really saying that we're not fully independent?
I'm saying that we're not fully independent, and even though we have instruments, legal instruments, provisions, treaties, processes, and procedures that establish this political independence, in the cultural space, which is more important than the political space, we have not defined our independence. We have not declared it, and we've not entrenched it. We've not taken the time to explore the extent to which cultural imperialism, right, distorts a national identity. For instance, go on. Thank you, sir. For instance, people still talking about how they have rights. When the police come, you got to read me my rights. And Miranda rights are an American judicial concept. They are not. It's not a Bahamian concept, right? And I think that's a good indicator of the extent to which cultural imperialism impedes our ability to self-identify. Right? Another instance is the treatment of natural hair on Africans in an Afro-majority country. We are still in cultural spaces, even when policy dictates that you cannot discriminate in that manner. Citizens, children, like minors and adults, are still subject, right, to policy enforcement or the bastardization of policy enforcement, where people who have authority vested in them make a determination that your natural hair is inappropriate for this space, whether the law says it or not. Those are big, big deals, right, in terms of self-identity, personal and collective national development and identity. And these are that we should be talking about. And it's important for parents to talk to their kids about hair, and to explain to their kids that, yes, there is a respectability politics in play. As a parent, I want you to have the best chance in life. I'm actively aware of the discrimination and stigma that still exists in professional spaces around natural hair. Further to that, I'm fully aware of how difficult it is to disrupt or remove that culture, given that it wasn't until the 40s and the 50s that the last Caribbean country repealed the law that you could shoot a dreadlocks person on sight. See, if you say to your child, every time you talk about locks, every time I see you budding, when you start your little locks, I have a visceral response. I have a response in my body, a memory of trauma, where I am compelled to tell you don't do that because I cannot protect you if you do that. See, if you have that conversation with your child, you ain't no dirty rasta. What happened? You gonna start smoking drugs now? Hey, oh, no, not in my house. If that's the type of conversation you want to have, then you are complicit. You are a co-conspirator in the imperialist agenda. But if you are honest with your kids' vulnerability and your desire to keep them safe beyond your control, then you are going to help a young person, or you're going to facilitate healthier personal identity development and citizen development, because they will feel more confident as a member of society with their identity. And so, yeah, these are the conversations around emancipation that I hope that we're going to have at home in our family groups when we drink in beer, even when you're doing that thing that is still illegal right now, right, at the table. Have meaningful conversations. Like Rasta say, you got to overstand the why. Let's go to the phone line. Good morning, caller.
Hey, how you doing?
Hi, good, thank you.
Well, listen, yeah, you brave, man. You brave. you know. I watch sports a lot,
Mm-hmm.
and it was surprising, that how many of the black athletes,
Mm-hmm.
black female athletes, actually have no hair on their head.
Mm-hmm.
You see them out there with these flowing tresses, right?
Yes.
That stuff has to be glued on their head,
Given the speed, the speed they're running at, yes.
No, they'll be fast if they ran ball headed.
Possibly.
Okay, but see, we don't have we have no idea of how deep this conversation goes in terms of our preferences. You know, we say a lot of things from a particular perspective, but our preference as what we really want in the way of what we're trying to achieve. Our young people are still growing up, obviously conflicted. But I am listening to your conversation.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And what an interesting space, because the reason why you see women athletes, in particular, like track and field, and we have a spotlight on track and field in WNBA right now, and the reason why you see them so femmed up, hyper-feminized, right? And in some instances, people say hyper-sexualized, looking inappropriate, is because women in athletics face a lot of stigma and discrimination about their athletic bodies. And the first thing people say, oh, she's a lesbian. Oh, she's a butch. Oh, she's trying to be a man. No, she's trying to run at 100 miles per hour. And she's turning every ounce of flesh into muscle that she can. But because she is a femme woman, she wants to hyper-feminize now so that she's not accused of trying to be a man. And so she could feel more feminine in her muscular, athletic body, right? And that's about culture as well, because woman is woman. You running in the woman race, you good enough. And what we find is that there's a politics. The caller talked about people sort of making choices and not knowing how they're being influenced by the world, by the world around them. A lot of people just don't realize you didn't make. Here's the thing I learned in school, and it's probably why I'm a rebel now. So maybe turn off the radio if your kids are around. When they said the sky's the limit, you have every choice in the world. But then when I sat down to take my GCEs and realized, in fact, it's when I got to college to take my A-levels, I realized that I couldn't do any English language A-levels because I didn't have the prerequisite courses, because I didn't do GCE. Well, I did GCE English Literature, but I didn't do well. And I started with science streams in BJC. So from BJC time, I went on a science track. By the time I got to A-levels and wanted to do English language, the choice wasn't there for me. So I realized we tell people the sky's the limit, there's every choice, but we're actually only feeding them 5 choices. We're only feeding them 10 choices, right? And so a part of this emancipation and independence conversation is, can you extract or what has influenced you to make a decision, right? And so it's not that you're not going to be influenced. We're going to be influenced by all of the content, all of the stimuli, all of the input. The question is, can you clearly identify what influenced your choice, what influenced your cultural shift, your decision to do something? Like, we're wearing clothes. I match and color coordinate. And sometimes I have to think, why am I wearing this today? What influenced it, right? Because you can never negate the power of culture or of cultural imperialism. Anyway, thank you, callers. Let's get into this conversation with Organization for Responsible Government. Joining me today is Matt Aubrey and Vanessa Bethel. Good morning. Please introduce yourself and give us your role or responsibility with the entity.
This is Matt Aubrey. I'm the Executive Director for the Organization for Responsible Governance.
Hi, this is Vanessa Bethel, and I am currently serving in a dual role, assistant and administrative manager.
Awesome.
So I think and sitting here and listening to what a fascinating start to your show and the dialogue around that. And it really is, I think it's fortunate that we're here to have this kind of conversation, because what we see is emancipation leading to majority rule, leading to independence. This is a trajectory, and it's a trajectory towards self-determination. So if an emancipation was the first determination of your ability to self-direct, the ability for you to determine, to be able to flourish, to thrive, to grow, each of those moments created and expanded the potential opportunities, but more needed to be done. And so when we look at where we are now, we realize that in order to realize the full potential of what was most recent independence and the promise of education is really grounded in what org is doing now, is looking at that. So for those that don't know what org is or have a lot of different thoughts about it, we have a very specific mission. Our mission is to promote the principles of good governance by engaging citizens and the private sector and civil society and working with government, basically though to foster more inclusive and more sustainable social and economic growth so that more folks are doing better. That's the functional reason. Governance matters, and how a thing is run definitely makes a difference, but they're not on the state of a government or your GDP, but on the way that people within that space, that country, realize their true potential and contribute and feel a part and understand how decisions are being made. So when we do our work, and we do it in 4 different areas, we do our policy development, we talk about laws like freedom of information, which we've talked on this show a lot about, anti-corruption measures, public procurement, these types of things. We want to make sure people understand the laws, that they have an opportunity to weigh in while they're being developed and have access to those. But we also realize that you could pass the best laws, like we did with freedom of information in 2017 that we still don't have, and you need citizen involvement. So we do a lot of work on helping people to understand the system, to find their voice or refine their voice, to recognize that the circumstances, the influences that you talk about, and the governance system can often be at absolute contrast to your individual or your family or your community's growth, development, and success. And what do we do about that? And how do you do something about that? And some people are willing to jump in the fight right now, and we try and help facilitate that through advocacy tools and things like that. But a lot of folks are really just getting back to that conversation because historically they may have felt like this system doesn't speak to me, doesn't give me opportunities. Mm-hmm. So we also create tools and forums that bring folks together to be able to have these two-way dialogues. And then finally, we also realize that attacking that system, changing the system, is tough work for an individual. So we want people to have sustainable and impactful places to go. So we invest a lot in helping other not-for-profits and faith-based organizations to grow and develop and flourish. And that process, we think, helps to further this concept of self-determination.
Absolutely. I want to take a moment here. I want to talk about, so it's been over in these, while you were speaking, when you use the word trajectory, right? Let's talk about trajectory and like from emancipation straight up to post-independence. I'm doing a little research in history for the reunion. If you come into any of the events, maybe close half an ear because this may be in a trivia question, right? So Arthur D. Hanna, A.D. Hanna's mother, her name was Flora. And Flora was known within the community as a strong, ferocious women's, I don't want to say sexual health rights, because that's not the language they would have used then, but she was a maternity and pregnancy advocate for women. And she was so committed and dedicated to it that she advocated that men should wait 2 years between births, right, to make another baby. The health and recovery and wellness of the woman and the child, let's wait 2 years between birth, to the point where she demanded that a man be arrested for, essentially demanding that his wife allow him to impregnate her before that time. That's A.D. Hanna's mother, right? And I'm certain that's why A.D. Hanna found a woman named Beryl, who he made into a Hanna. Beryl Hanna went down to the Southern Islands and Aucklands and tell everybody down there, listen, I'm here on behalf of the Queen. And the Queen sent me to tell y'all that y'all should vote PLP. Talk about self-determination, trajectory. Beryl and A.D. brought us Glennis and Dion. Two of the rebellious, smart mind, dedicated to country, dedicated to community, dedicated to family, politicians that we've seen in a while, right? And so even in our lives, we can see the trajectory, right? And sort of the sentiment that let's not isolate majority rule or independence from majority rule,
Right.
and let's see it as a process. And like, I'm so happy I could be a part of the HHT family and use this example of the process in real time.
And that's what you hope, right? You want to see those examples that there is a forward movement, and movement doesn't, and that trajectory clearly doesn't always move in one direction, right?
Right.
You're stopping, you're starting, but it also realizes that as you see those incidences of success, it indicates, and no doubt anybody who's listened to, we're concerned and suspicious and skeptical optimists. We believe that things will go forward, but they need support and they need direction and intentional efforts. But when you see those types of trajectories happening, it's key because you can say, look, there is opportunity. The question then becomes, at this stage, is that opportunity available to all?
Right.
And what voices haven't been able to follow that trajectory, and why? And so folks with disabilities and our youth and people in family islands and women and these vulnerable communities that we have, are historically vulnerable communities that have not been part of that forward movement in the same pace, they become critical because to realize what came forward with emancipation, that you had the fundamental capacity not to be owned, right? Not to be directed in that way. It's only going to be realized when you start to see a broader scope of folks being able to get through that process, be able to self-direct, self-determine, and take benefit and receive opportunities for success the way that to be seen based on where we are.
And most people understand the need for self-momentum linked to self-determination, but there are instances where people must rely on public infrastructure, on public systems, on state systems, right? For instance, the fishermen at Montague Ramp. These are all people who have determined, I will make a way for myself. I have skills, I have a skill set, I will build a skill set, but I am prepared to carve my own path. What they rely on, though, is some public infrastructure.
Right.
Like the parking lot for the ramp has to be paved, or else the constant salt waves will erode it far faster than it should erode. Right? The foreshore must be cleared of trash. The garbage system must run continuously. The bathroom, and stick a pin, the bathroom nearest the ramp needs to be repaired urgently, so that the vendors there can provide the safe environment for the handling, storage, and sale of fish to customers that include tourists, right? They have to rely on public infrastructure that the state has an obligation to provide. Same thing for Family Islanders. So what you find is that you've got talent, you've got skill set, and if we look at young people, you've got ambition, but you don't have access to the public infrastructure. So I'm a 13-year-old boy. I know my parents are trying. I know they care, but they got 4 others to look after. They struggling. They can't get a car because they're trying to insure each of us one at a time. Why is there not a bus that could pick me up and take me to the after-school program, that could take me to the BTVI, build a car, electronic car program? I'm ready to do it. I got my schoolwork with me. I do my work in the morning so I could go.
Yeah.
But how do I get there?
Yeah, and I'll say, just to reiterate what Matt spoke to, I mean, and that's precisely why the principles of and pillars of good governance work across those areas. You know, we as citizens and folks and the people have to be empowered and understand what our place in the role, but we can't do it alone, right? So it's across those sectors, and that's precisely why we work in those spaces. You know, I think understanding what our limitations are is important, but there's a way forward, and everybody's going to have a different capacity, but that's why we do so much community programming. You know, involves educating people about issues. It also involves a lot of listening. You know, that particular example that you brought to the table, we will, if we're in the room, we're going to bring that up and we're going to put it forward, right? But we're also imparting tools and advocating for things like public consultation, right? So bridging those gaps, facilitating communication mechanisms, so where you have all of the really important concerns and the challenges that people face, no matter how hard they're trying to create that path to self-determination, we have to address the bumps in the road. And I think that's a really important part of our work.
Yeah. And for people, another example, constituency offices, right? Constituency offices typically start off as campaign offices. Mm-hmm. And once a candidate is won, that particular space will transition to a constituency office. A constituency office is supposed to be neutral, right? Politically neutral. However, we understand that the vast majority of people in that space have volunteered, right? They volunteered to support their party, and if the candidate wins, they volunteered to support the community and the party in that space. We should acknowledge the commitment and the contribution of those volunteers, and then acknowledge that it's a system that limits their contribution not just to their own party within the constituency, to the constituency and to the country, right? I'm sure that constituency workers could do a lot more if they were better organized. But to be better organized, they need more information, right? And they need the type of information that government may not necessarily be organized to produce. They have the capacity to produce it if properly organized, right? And so even in that space where we tend to say, oh, they ain't doing it because there's F&M and they know this polling division is PLP, it's probably not that. It's probably that they're constrained by the limitations of the model or the system that they're operating under.
And governance is simply that. It's a social contract between the people and the government. And as Vanessa spoke to, it's crucial, right? It's essential that there's a partnership, that work happens, that there's an inherent trust that underlies that. And what we've seen in our work in the last number of years is and it's been researched in across the world, but public trust is very low. Mm-hmm. And not just low in government, but low in institutions like ours, like not-for-profits and churches and businesses, across the board. People, this is a time that people are feeling very much that they have to be very selfish and protective of their own interests.
And resources.
When you feel like you're in particular crisis, then you're going to be on the things around you, and you're not going to be as receptive to giving up because that thing has been set up. So that speaks to why it's so crucial that, and I think you used this word earlier, that there's an intentional effort, to understand how you're influenced, what kind of circumstances are being at play now, but also to realize that although they're not obvious sometimes, there are opportunities for you to critically think about something, to be able to express your thoughts about something, to be able to work and mobilize with others towards something. It's not a fast fix, but none of these issues that hold us back as a country are, right? Mm-hmm. So how do we then look at restoring some of that public trust? And the first step is obviously listening. We need to let people know that their opinions, their thoughts, their voices matter. The people that are most affected by a policy need to be a part of the conversation about the development of that policy or any solutions to the challenges that they experience. Because if you're trying to solve it externally, it's like somebody coming into your house and saying, oh, I'm gonna fix everything here. You're going to be resistant. You're probably not going to get it right. They probably don't understand, and they haven't asked you as to, do you even think you need the help, and what kind of help do you need? Yeah. So we need to start those circumstances of listening. And we've done a couple of projects recently that have started to do that.
All right. So when we come back from this break, let's talk about some of those projects and let's identify some of the state mechanisms and civil society organizations that people may not be aware of, that they could tie into for more information, resources, and opportunities for capacity building at an individual level, a familial level, and a community level. You're on the clock with Erin Greene on this walk to freedom. We'll be right back.
In 2023, over 9 million visitors came to the Bahamas. This year, we plan on shattering that record. That's why tourism is everyone's business.
Paradise is not only found in Nassau, but throughout our 16-island destination.
No matter what you do, we all have a part to play in our tourism industry.
This is our country.
These are our islands.
This is our home.
That's why tourism is everyone's business.
Beulah, gal, can you believe this? We are now the patrol queens of the neighborhood.
We now large and in charge. So we need to check out what's going on in everybody's yard. What about that gun that we know that Junior and his homeboys just ran out? Can we report that too?
Of course we can.
But we could be in deep trouble if they find out.
We need to report what we see, Beulah. When you call Crime Stoppers, they just answer your call in Miami.
So then we can report everything? Guns, where they hiding the drugs, who shoot who part of which gang, or who disturbing the peace with the loud music and the motorcycles.
Then our neighborhood will be the best in the Bahamas, and everybody gonna want to come live here. And then our house price will go up, gal.
So what we waiting on? What's the number?
If you see something, say something. Let us all pitch in and stop the crime before it's your time. Call 328-8477 from Nassau or 242-300-8477 from the Family Islands. Or text us through the Crack Crime Bahamas app. Stop the crime before it's your time.
Hey Bahamas, eye-openers, check out 2 brand new books by our legendary 3-time PM, Hubert Ingram. Get the tea on his amazing leadership and courage to buck the system. These books are for you, the game changers, movers and shakers, and anyone passionate about our nation's roots and future. Available now at Dungalik Studios, Logos Bookstore, the National Art Gallery of the Bahamas, and Chapter 1 Bookstore. Score your copies today. Celebrate our amazing legacy.
The Guardian Media Group has your ticket to Paris.
On your marks, get set, go!
Join the Guardian Media Group, Star 106 Hits, Guardian Radio 96.9, and Hot 91 FM. And follow Team Bahamas from paradise to Paris. Live comprehensive updates on Team Bahamas every day during the 2024 Summer Olympics. We are your ticket to Paris. Nassau Guardian Sports Editor Sheldon Longley will be trackside, bringing you closest to our athletes in their quest for gold. From paradise to Paris. The 2024 Summer Olympics. Live updates. Brought to you by gold sponsors, the Bahamas Ministry of Wines and Spirits, distributors of refreshing Sands beer. Silver sponsor, Executive Motors. And the bronze sponsors, Hertz Rent-A-Car, Nagico Insurance, Bay Street Garage, Nassau Motors, your Chevy and Honda dealers, and New Life Natural. Let the games begin.
Stephen Gardner alongside 100-meter hurdler Devon Charlton.
Attention, all fall 2024 applicants to University of the Bahamas. The new academic year is fast approaching and we're thrilled to welcome you to UB. But first, we need your help. If you've started your online application, now is the time to submit all outstanding supporting documents. Make sure to send in your transcripts and copies of relevant passport pages urgently. To secure your acceptance to UB, your application must be fully processed. And remember to keep checking your emails for important updates and reminders. Orientation and advisement for new students kicks off on Wednesday, August 7th, and classes begin Monday, August 19th. This message is brought to you by the Office of Recruitment and Admissions at University of the Bahamas.
For fast, reliable, and impactful printing services, look no further. Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life. We stand by our quality products that is second to none. Our affordable pricing and friendly, efficient staff makes Printmasters the ultimate choice for all your printing needs. We can deliver any type of printing services, from banners to booklets to business cards. You name it, we can print it.
Let Printmasters bring your masterpiece to life.
Located at the Nassau Guardian Building, telephone 302-2361.
Planning a trip to the beautiful Bahamas? Look no further than Hertz Car Rental. With convenient locations in Nassau and Freeport, Grand Bahama, we are here to get you there. Whether you're exploring the vibrant streets and sights of Nassau or soaking up the sun in Freeport, Hertz has the perfect ride for your adventure. Book at our Freeport location at 352-3297 or Nassau location at 377-8684 or visit our website at hertzbahamas.com. All major credit cards accepted. Hertz Car Rental. Your journey starts with us.
Love the show? Want to give your support? Become a sponsor today. Call 302-2300 for our rates and packages. That's 302-2300. Become a sponsor on Guardian Radio 96.9 FM for talk all day.
Good morning and welcome back to Guardian Radio 96.9 FM. You're on the clock with Erin Greene. Org is in studio with us today. I may not be, like, if you don't see me in studio, if like you don't hear me in studio tomorrow, I may or may not be buried under a small pile of Nam Doc Mai mangoes. I want to say good morning to everybody in Abaco, including the people who let these Nam Doc Mai mangoes slip past customs and immigration and come to New Providence. I say thank you very much. If anybody looking for Nam Doc Mai mango seeds, maybe you could call me. I got a mango butter project where you extract the butter from the seed, but the Nam Doc Mai mango seed may be too valuable for that. They may be needed for replanting. So as we come back into this conversation, in the break I was reminded of Malcolm Gladwell's book, Tipping Point, right? I want to make this point to both advocates and the communities that advocates attempt to serve, that critical mass is a very important element or part of the discussion. As an advocate, you have to manage your frustration. You've got to practice empathy and compassion and be prepared to take people where they are. Ideas don't become real until they hit critical mass. That's why in the Bible it says, wherever two or more are gathered, I am there. Critical mass is required to hit the tipping point. And so from the side of the constituents or communities that advocates and activists hope to serve, you may see an idea, you may have seen it in practice somewhere else, you may see it succeed in a small pocket, even in your own town. But for the idea to be sustainable, it has to hit critical mass. Which reminded me of this guy who said to me, he said, man, Greene, you making plenty sense, right? Except, why you want me to stay straight in a world that is leaning left? He's saying, the whole world leaning left, and here you are standing straight, trying to grab my hand, but the two of us must stand straight while the whole world is leaning left. And you say, you know, as an advocate, I'm like, boss, I out here trying to kill myself, and you telling me I see you, but I got this bear in my hand, and I got to turn the corner before the police come, right? I have to manage my frustration, practice compassion and empathy, and say, and this is what I say, especially like when I'm in traffic and people doing foolishness, I say, yeah, Erin, you've never missed a hot meal. Mm-hmm. You know, even when you was in university and buying bread at 7 pence a loaf and tin beans at 12 pence a loaf, you ain't never missed a meal that you needed to eat.
But I think it also, and we in our work do a lot of looking at like micro gains, like how do you show that when things have changed a bit, we're a little closer than where we were. So even being able to step back and say the world is going left is a point of movement. When you're just not going with the flow, and to your point, not realizing that there is this direction that maybe folks are going, and there's reasons why. When you start to ask those questions, you can find your own individual reasons for why I do that. It can't be because Erin told me, and it can't be because Org told me. It's because it is invested in the thing that I care about. And sometimes that's me, my growth. Sometimes it's the future for my children. I think that's a pretty universal one. Sometimes it's the mangroves and the health of our environment. Sometimes it's the mangoes. Sometimes those are the things that make you decide I might move a little bit to the wrong direction here. I might take a step back and understand the scope of things so that I can make my next step my direction, not the direction everybody's going.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, I mean, I think that is a key thing and part of our work. I mean, we do strive to always meet, you know, we do a lot of community programming, a lot of focus groups, a lot of listening. And we're meeting people where they are, right? Mm-hmm. We allow them to dictate our conversations. We're not prescribing things. We want to empower them. We want, when they've identified things that they might want to do, we want to facilitate empowering them to move on and do that. And a key component of that is understanding what people's capacity is. Mm-hmm. Like, not everybody is going to be capable. If you're struggling to find food, if you're not going to be in the position to go to this other end of the spectrum. Mm-hmm. But to Matt's point, like, even just getting to that point where you can take a step back and start understand and start interrogating that's empowerment of itself, right? Whether it starts out with like this external action, there's internal things that are going on that's moving you whether you realize it, forward, right? And I think that's important to recognize as a part of our own work to, it can start very simple, but ultimately I view that as a part of like doing decolonial work, right? Like,
Right.
And I think that's really important to understand because that's empowerment itself.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the conversations that we should be having, tying into emancipation, but also to the community organizing work that org does, we need to start having conversations about private and public versus public spaces, right? We are gonna we have this legislation that's on the table, the cannabis bill for medicinal use and personal and communal religious use, right? A lot of misconceptions about the extent to which their car is private on a public road, right? And I realize people do things in their car, like on the phone, watching movies, putting on makeup, because of a misperception or a misinterpretation of what private means, in that public space. Now, when we bring cannabis into the conversation, right, and we have to say to adults and parents, okay, your home is a private space, but now within your home, you need to create another private space because you cannot smoke this cannabis in front of children, right? And so although your home is your private space and you want to say that I can smoke cannabis wherever I want in my home, the truth is, as a responsible citizen, member of a community, member of a family, you now have to realize that you have to create a private space within your home. Right. And that if you intend to smoke in your home, that your perception or what you perceive as your right to privacy shifts. Because if there are children in the home, then the state has an obligation to ensure that those children are safe in that home if there is cannabis present.
And that piece of legislation, I think, just highlights one of those things that we've talked about, which is that concept, the importance of public consultation. So often laws are passed very quickly. They might be tabled in the House and passed a few weeks later, if not the next week. And the truth is, a lot of these laws, they require unbundling. You require looking at what are the potential implications. What does that mean, not just for us as a country, but for me as an individual, for a community that might be affected, whatever it might be. And the time is required for people to understand the nuances, for us to think a little bit about, oh, I guess that really means this, or that's something I want to make sure my thoughts are there. The way that our country and most democracies are going to work are not to say that everyone is going to get their way. Decisions are made, often very in contrast to what you directly want. But the importance is, did you have an opportunity to put your thoughts forward, to further an argument, to venture your support for something that was in there? When you do, whatever that law is, however it's passed, you're going to see, okay, at least I understand where it was or why the decision was made, and I might be more likely to comply with a law. I might be more likely to promote a law. I might be more likely to think about how to make that law better. I might be more likely to be able to live within this space such that dilemma of my own self-responsibility and the responsibility of the state can find some connection. When you don't, why not go around the system? If it doesn't make sense, and there's no way for me to seek recourse or address this or reconcile my own individual, then why not go around the system? Right. And unfortunately, when that happens, we see lots of problems that do come up.
Absolutely. As we close out the show, I just want to put another example on the table. We are offering a personal or individual religious use license for Rastafarians to consume cannabis as a sacrament, right? I'm a Rastafarian. I have a wife. I have a child. We have low income. So I've got a one bedroom that's really an efficiency. When it's time for me to, what is the private space that I can go into? Do I have to tell my family, you got to go outside the house? You got to take the baby 10 feet away from the doorway so that this can become a private space with no child in it, right? What if I live in what we call a compound? Now, I live in a little semi-bougie part of the island where I could, if I had my religious use license, I could go in the yard, in the corner, I could go in the bush, cross the road, right? But what happens when it's someone who lives in a compound and what the definition of private space changes? And how do we think about that? And how are we prepared to support community members, right? Like, it's a brethren willing to say, well, listen, when it's time for us to partake in the sacrament, we're going to ask all the ladies to go to your house, brethren Brown, and then us brothers, we will come to this house and we will imbibe. And then when it's time for women to participate in the sacrament, the men will take the kids and we will go to this house, and the women can go in this private space, right? And these are things that people need to be able to contribute to the conversation so better policy can be created and better laws can be written that capture the needs of everyone in the conversation.
Right. Our tagline is get informed and get involved. And I think fundamentally that speaks to the importance of understanding, and you have to be able to get access to information to be able to understand.
Right. How can people reach out to org to get involved?
So you can reach us at orgbahamas.com on our website. You can follow us on social media at Org Bahamas Foundation, whether it be on Facebook or LinkedIn or Instagram. You can send us an email at info@orgbahamas.com and let us know. On our website, you can join, you can get involved, you can get information. The critical thing we feel, though, is to come together to learn about what the opportunities are and find spaces where that voice can matter.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, Vanessa Bethel, Matt Aubrey. Thank you to the callers. And I just got a text ahead that said, listen, Shawnee is the fastest quarter miler in the world. And she wears a wig, but she has natural long hair as well. Shawnee say confuse the enemy. That's how you win gold medals. And another texter just said, it's not just the black women athletes who over-beautify themselves. We also have Bahamian athletes who sound American. Dear texter, that is a very savvy political, cultural move. While Jamaicans carry their culture in an outward expression, Bahamians, our politics are different. We assimilate. Anyway, that's been our response to cultural imperialism. We got more time to talk, but Guardian Radio AM is next. So once I get myself out of this pile of mango, I can see what we're saying on the next show. Next time you join On the Clock. I got to go. Producer, just cut it. Just cut it. I got mangoes to eat.
This is Guardian Radio 96.9 FM, Nassau, Bahamas.